last year, we decided on Mother's Day to do something a little bit different than we've done in the past. In the past, me or somebody like me would stand up. It would normally be a man, and we would talk about mothering and motherhood, something that we have truly never done and can't sometimes relate to. And so last year we decided, look, what if we just invited a group of godly women to come teach us and talk to us about the subject of motherhood. And so we liked it so much last year that we decided to do it again this year. And so let me introduce the people that are up here on the stage with me. On my far left is Jessica Gain. Jessica is a mother of twins and that are less than 1 year old. Yeah, yeah. I don't know how to feel about just immediate applause. That's awesome. And so Jessica, there's a picture of her and her family, should be behind me. The twins, and so she's just new to momhood and mothering and all that sort of stuff, and that's kind of the perspective she brings today. Next to her, immediately to my left, is Holly Porter. Holly has 2 sons in elementary school, and she kind of comes from that perspective. Also, she comes from the perspective of having a difficult marriage, being married to Sam Porter. Yes.
Clap for that one.
So far, that's the most applause we've gotten today, so I'm not sure how to feel about that. There's a picture of her and her family behind me. Also to my right is Kelly Lafferty. Kelly actually works on staff here as our worship pastor. And she is a full-time mom too. She has 3 kids, and her picture is completely planned out in every single detail, in every single way. And that gives you a little bit of a glimpse into my life with her every single day too. And then on the far right is Leah Norris. Leah has 3 grown children, and she's in the grandmothering phase. And we actually have 2 pictures of your family behind me, I think. And then, so Leah comes from that perspective. And Leah, when she was in her active parenting years, was a stay-at-home mom. So we kind of have a broad spectrum of thought and ideas and experiences. And so with that being said, let me kind of jump in with you guys. So let's assume for a moment that every dad in the room was hanging right now in this moment on your every singular word, just hoping, waiting to hear from you. Finish this sentence for me. As a mom, I wish that dads knew, and let me get Leah to kick this one off. As a mom, I wish that dads knew. They're listening to every word.
Every word.
Every word.
I wish dads knew that parenting is a team sport, and no one player is more important than other players, and we're on the same team, and together we all get the ball across the goal line, and we all win together.
Yeah. I know there's probably some other thoughts that I would like everybody else to share, but let me kind of unpack that with you a little bit, Leah. So talk to me a little bit about what that means. What does it mean to be part of a team, or you're on the same team? Talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, as in any household, there are certain things that just have to be done. There are certain responsibilities, and so it helps to communicate what those responsibilities are, what your expectations are, what his expectations are, and line out, okay, the trash has to be taken out, the clothes have to be washed and folded and put away. Who's going to do all of those things? And I should do some, you should do some, the children should do some. And after you kind of have everybody's position lined out, then let them do their job, and let them do their job as they see fit. I mean, I know as women, as moms, it has to be done this way. We've all seen the YouTube video on how to fold a fitted sheet. Those ladies, I actually have a cousin that can do that, not me. But, so if they don't fold the fitted sheet just the way you think it ought to be, it's okay. They're doing something. And you get critical and, oh no, this is how it has to be done, then people give up.
Yeah.
They quit and go, well, fine, do it yourself. And then we take on all that work and complain, oh, I have to do everything. Mm-hmm. And part of that is because we've been critical of our teammates and how they do their job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you saw my picture, right, of like everybody like that looked the same. So this is a little bit tougher for me. But look, Brandon and I do a good job of the same thing. I kind of have to step back and go, okay, it got done. I may not want to watch how it got done.
Oh no.
But it got done. And he's super good about understanding there's different seasons in our lives too.
Right.
And so I'm more busy at a certain time of year, Christmas, Easter, and so he's able to kind of pick up some slack with things.
Yeah.
And so that's super important. So yeah, I hope dads know that we appreciate everything that they do.
Absolutely.
We really do, I swear.
Yeah, just do it my way,
Yeah, my way, yeah.
Yeah, my wife and I had a similar dynamic going, and what happened was I finally reached a point of frustration where I told her, I said, look, there are two ways this can play out. And I'm not saying don't take this as pastorly advice because this isn't necessarily the way to go, but I looked at her and I said, look, we can do this two ways. We can do it your way and you do it, or you can do it my way and the way I do it, and you just choose. You tell me which way we want to go, and then we did it that way. I think this is an important subject because I think this is a tension a lot of women feel. Like, I think a lot of women, moms, are longing for a partnership that they don't think that they have. I think they feel like a lot of things are one-sided, and I'm kind of ashamed to say it, but earlier on in my marriage, my wife was longing for a partnership, and I thought she had one. And there was a serious disconnect between us. And the thing that changed it was she ruptured her Achilles tendon and was bedridden for months. And all of a sudden, I took on all of her responsibilities. And I had 3 kids I had to take care of and her. And that's when I realized fully what my wife brought to the table and brings to the table. And that's when I also realized it wasn't fair. There wasn't a true partnership that was happening in our marriage. And so let me encourage you guys, look, if you don't believe me, do this. Give your wife a week off. Tell her, go somewhere, do something, and you take care of the kids, and you take care of the house, and you take care of everything, and I promise you, after a week, you'll think differently about the situation. Yeah, every woman's going, please, please.
I like this. Yeah, this is great.
Okay, so the question was, as a mom, I wish dads knew. So, Holly, you got an answer for that one?
Just tagging on to what the other lady said, it's the little things that mean the most. Coming home to no dirty dishes in the sink, is a big deal for me. Coming home to the laundry being pulled out and folded and even put up.
Wait, Sam does that?
He does. He does. He had a really good mom that showed him how to do it. And as women, it's important to take care of yourself too. I remember, and it's the small things. I remember after we had Jacob, prior to having Jacob, I love to work out in the mornings and that sort of thing. And I thought, after I have kids, I'm not going to be able to get up in the morning because I'm going to be taking care of a baby. And I remember after we had Jacob, Sam would get up in the morning. I would get up in the morning and go work out and go and shower at the office and go to work. And Sam would take care and get him up and feed him a bottle and get the bags packed and him to daycare. And that was a big deal for me because that was my time in the morning to take care of myself, get mentally ready for the day for everything that I had going. So it's the small things that men don't think about that honestly that mean the most to us sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with all of those. I think my mind shift, just in the past couple of months was that I wish dads knew that it's a really hard identity shift. Like you go from being a wife to all of a sudden you're a mom, and that's awesome and incredible, but it means that everything about what I do now impacts more than me and more than just my husband. And it's pretty easy to apologize to him. It's a lot harder to apologize to 2 screaming infants. And so I had to learn and trying to explain even to Josh that it feels different. It's not just me and him anymore. Like we are a family of 4. And so that has taken me, and I'm still trying to learn what that looks like to be both and still be myself. Like and still have time to just be me too.
Yeah.
One other thing I'd like to add in the team analogy, and because I know we have a lot of single mothers in the crowd also. Yeah. And so enlist your children to also help with chores and do things around the house and enlist other people.
Yeah. Kelly, did you want to finish that sentence too? Did you want to?
I did.
Did you?
Kind of.
Did I miss that?
Little things. Yeah.
Oh, little things. Well, I'm doing a terrible job at this hosting thing, aren't I? All right, so let's move on. And I think the answer to this question is probably the same for everybody. So I'm gonna let Holly tackle this. As a mom, and let's assume for a moment, Holly, that Jacob and Carson were hanging on your every word right now.
Always are.
Yeah. As a mom, I wish my kids knew.
As a mom, I wish my kids knew how much I love and adore them. When they made me a mom 10 years ago, hands down, one of the best days of my life. And I just want them to talk to me. They're 8 and 10, so they're at the age now where they still think I'm semi-cool and they'll talk to me and tell me about their day. But I just want them to come home and tell me about the good things and the bad things that happen to them each and every day. I tell Jacob all the time, talk to me, tell me what's going on, let me help. And I want them to know that there is nothing they can do, nothing they can say, no question that they can ask that will ever change the amount that I love them. I am their biggest champion, and I will always be their biggest cheerleader.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Is that the same? I know, Leah, you added something a little bit earlier today.
Yeah, I just want my children, and they're grown, but I really not only want them to know how much I deeply, deeply love them, but I want them to have lives of true joy.
Yeah. Okay, so being a mom means you manage a lot of things. You have work, you have marriage, you have self-care, you got kids, and all kinds of dynamics coming at you. So talk to me about, how do you manage those things? How do you manage the balance between kids, marriage, self-care, and work?
I think for me, the biggest thing was to realize that it was okay to ask for help. So not just from Josh, but because he works full time, I work part time at the church, but I guess partly because I had twins, I feel like everyone was watching, even the people at Walmart, and I was expected to be perfect all the time because my personality is naturally to be a perfectionist. And so I wanted to nail this, I wanted to be awesome. And so for probably the first month or so, I was still trying to do everything. Until finally I just realized I can't. Everything's going to fall, including myself, if I don't ask for help. So the biggest thing for me was to realize that there are people that are willing and able to help me if I would just humble myself and realize that I don't have it all together. And that there are even people in the church that I wasn't being willing enough to open myself up to ask those things.
Yeah. Leah, what do you think?
I forgot the question. Go, Jessica.
This is the most honest interview ever, I swear. It's so amazing. How do you manage the balance between your kids, your marriage, self-care, and work?
Oh, gosh. I say invest in your church family. That when we moved back to Vicksburg, I had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and I was expecting another baby, and my husband was about to leave to be on the river for 3 months. And I was like, oh my gosh, my family is hours away. And so we invested our lives in Crossway Church and have some great friends that have gotten me out of jams more times than you know. But it's not just be around so they'll help you out, but invest your time in service, in community, in the ministries of the church.
Sure.
And teach your children to do the same.
Right. Did either of you guys want to jump in there?
I think for me, the hardest balance is being a mom and having a career. The farther I've gotten in my career, the harder it is to often struggle this. And Sam is a big supporter of my career, and he helps out in my parents as much as they can when things happen. But I think I've realized the things I need to choose the things I say yes to and choose the things I say no to, because you can't do it all. You can't be perfect at everything. I'm like you. I want to be a perfectionist. I want to be the perfect mom, perfect wife, perfect employee. But at this point in my life, I realized that being a mom is what I was put on this world for. And there's often times that I have to leave something undone on my desk because Carson has to be at a baseball game and I'm not going to miss that, or Jacob needs to be at soccer practice. And that paperwork will be there tomorrow. So I've realized that you can't be everything to everyone, but you've got to be intentional and choose what's most important to you at that time. And most importantly, not to compare yourself to other moms. Because you can look out across the crowd and someone's always going to be better than you at something. There's a lady at my office and she has a full-time job just like me. And I tell her all the time she's super mom because she makes homemade cupcakes. for her kids. My kids don't even know what homemade cupcakes are. You know, or she'll make cookies for the teachers. And I have realized, and I've asked my children, I've realized they don't care if they have a homemade cupcake. They like Kroger cupcakes. You know, and they don't need cookies on their birthday. I can pick up donuts. You know, so it's just the things, you've got to balance it. You can't do it all. Do not compare yourself to other mothers. Figure out what your children's love language is and speak into that. Same thing with your husband. Figure out what makes them feel loved and do that, but don't try to do it all.
I think that was a really good answer, but I'm tired of hearing about how awesome Sam is.
He's not that good. Does it make you feel
Much better. Kelly, did you want to jump in with a thought?
They answered it great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. So being a mom, obviously you navigate a lot of things. As we mentioned in the last, just the core of that last question was all these things you have to balance. And I think as you balance these things, what I've noticed is that oftentimes moms in particular experience a lot of either mom guilt or mom fears. And so talk with us a little bit about one of those that you faced, either a mommy fear or a mommy guilt. And by the way, maybe you face them now, but talk to us about that, and then tell us about what you discovered has helped you with that. So everybody's quiet, so.
I can take this. You know, I haven't really had super mommy guilt. Like a lot of people feel guilt when they take their kids to daycare or when they take their kids to school. I always looked at it as an opportunity for my kids to learn from other people. And I knew that they were going to be loved because I was very particular about the places we were going to take them. And I knew what was going to happen when they were there. And so I never really had that guilt around that. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. I had the first mommy guilt this past fall when our kids are all in elementary school and they're active in different things. And we got to December and Jackson is in 6th grade and he had his very first band concert. And the girls were in dance class and they had a performance and they both happened on the same day at the same time. And so I ran through all of this guilt, like I don't know what to do. Do I tell the girls that they can't do their thing because this is their brother's very first band concert and we all need to be there to support him? Or heaven forbid, we actually split up and do separate things? And I just didn't know what to do because I just had this guilt around missing Jackson's first band concert. And I thought, I can drive across town if I do it really fast, maybe I'll get there in time. Like I went through everything because I'm a perfectionist and I'm gonna make it all happen. But I finally just realized that, you know what, it's okay. It's okay if we're not at every single thing for our kids. And even though it was his first band concert, I made sure he knew that, I really wanted to be there. And so I was with the girls and Brandon was with Jackson. And, maybe next time we'll swap and I'll go to Jackson's thing and Brandon can go see the girls' thing. But they know that we're going to try our very best every time to be there for them because we love them and they know that. And, it gave me a little bit of heartburn, but, we all survived.
Yeah. Jessica, you had an interesting, when we talked about this earlier, you had an interesting answer to this. Tell us about a mommy guilt or mommy fear.
Interesting, that's a good word.
Yeah.
So I, again, very new to this whole thing, still trying to adjust. TJ lovingly refers to me as a helicopter mom because since I happen to work on the preschool hallways.
You were doing it this morning.
Sometimes I hang out a little bit too long by the baby room. But they're little and I guess I kind of am. Like, I'm just very particular about who watches them and who cares for them. And I went through a lot of work to get them here. And so I want them to be protected always. And so so they're 10 months old. So this past week, I went with the church to Orange Conference in Atlanta. And that was the first time I had been away from them for longer than like 8 hours ever. And so I was very much struggling. And then I get a text. And it was that Malachi had thrown up and then slept in it all night. And which, it's fine, but I was freaking out. And Chandler was sitting next to me and I'm an external processor, so I was saying all the things I was thinking. And he was like, Jessica, it's just like a drunk old guy. Like, he threw up and he kept on sleeping. It's fine. And I was still obviously not okay. Like, I'm still freaking out. That made me chuckle a little, but I was still not okay. And so I'm still saying, like, but if I would have been there, that wouldn't have happened. And if I would have been there, I would have checked on him. And I would have heard him cough, and I would have heard him throw up, and I would have cleaned him immediately, and I would have changed his stitches. And he was like, is he alive? And I said, well, yeah. And he was like, okay. And you're here. I was like, yeah. And he said, okay, then everything's fine. And I was like, but I could not. Like, immediately, all the things that happened in my head were, I was guilty because I left. Like, I never should have left because they're not old enough for me to leave yet. And they had formula because they're not used to having formula. And so that's what made them throw up. And just all of these things immediately started going on in my head. And I texted Jackie, who was there with them, and everything was fine. But I needed someone logical sitting next to me to say, like, you're alive, they're alive, everything is okay. And I think for me, it's going to keep taking those moments of me either stepping away for a second, fine with me, or just people being able to step in and say, like, hey, keep on walking down the hallway. Like, they're fine.
Hey, it's like a drunk man, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think realistically, I think that's what I'm going to have to do to keep getting over those mommy guilt moments and those fears. I mean, I'm just going to have to let them go.
Yeah.
I think we all have very similar mommy guilt. The fear that I have as a mom is that I'm totally going to mess my children up. I mean, I think a lot of moms have this fear. Am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to do the wrong thing? I feel like that I have had incredible role models in my life. And when I'm trying to figure out and struggling on what to do when the kids come to me and ask me something, I truly think, like, what would my mom have done? You know, and I feel like she didn't mess me up too much. I mean, I hope not. So, you know, we're going to make those mistakes, but I'm having to have conversations with my children now that, you know, my mother did not have to have 30 years ago, and that's okay because that's the world we live in. And I try to tell my kids when they ask me something and I don't know, I'll simply say, son, I don't know, but here's what I think. So, you know, we all as parents do the best we can and just truly pray that we don't mess our children up. I pray every night for God to give me the wisdom to say the right things, to do the right things, to raise these kids the way that He wants me to. So.
Yeah. Lee, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, at my stage in life, there's less fear and more guilt because, let's face it, I've already screwed my kids up. And, you know, that's now between them and their therapists. But one thing I realized a few years ago is because there is the fear that I have irreparably damaged my children. And, you know, and the errors that I made haunt me all the time, and am still making. But one of the things I realized is that my children are not actually my children. My children are God's people. And I have a divine assignment to love my children, my 2 beautiful daughter-in-laws, and now my 3 gorgeous grandchildren to the best of my ability. But only God is God, and He loves them more than I love them, and He loves them so much that He's not going to put their entire future, their entire eternity in the hands of one human.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's great. So, since we're kind of talking about this, because spiritual development, you guys are all, you love God, you long for your children, your grandchildren to love God. So what are some things that you guys do to help them know and love God too?
I think for me right now, because they are so little, it's more about changing my mindset. So things that I just take for granted, like when I go outside, I know God made the trees. I can thank Him for that in my head. But I'm trying to make it more part of what I do to speak that, so that as they get older and they're understanding, it won't have to be something I'm making a habit of when they're 5. It will already be ingrained into who I am and what I'm doing, so that when we do go on those walks, I will continue to make those comments, and then it will be second nature for them too as well. And then I love singing. I always have music playing. You will never hear me sing in public. It is not a pretty sight, or thing to hear. But I always have music playing, and so I hope that the boys will also grow to love music and grow to love worship. They clap and dance now, so I like to think that's their little way of praising Jesus with me. But I hope that those things that I am doing in my mind, and that, like when Josh and I go on walks, I try to encourage him to do that as well. Like I want both of us to have the mindset now and the habit now to overly communicate about God so that it's not hard to later.
Yeah, what I love about your answer there is normally we think as parents about spiritual development of our children in terms of, what do we get them to do, rather than how do we prepare ourselves and get ourselves ready and start habits right now that will aid us in the future. And I think that's just a great answer. Holly, how would you answer that question?
I think early on, Sam and I did some of the same type things. We played good music and we would speak to them about that sort of thing. So we always try to have open discussion about God. For this question is kind of four-part to me. The talking about God, obviously. We also try to pray with our children. We've started that since they were infants. We would pray for them when they were babies. And now that they're a little bit older, we pray with them. Carson, a lot of times, we'll get ready to go to sleep and I'll say, all right, bud, let's pray. And he'll say, okay, Mama, you start and I'll finish. And that's perfectly fine, as long as you are praying with them and you're telling them it's not just something you have to do at bedtime or when you wake up in the morning, but you can do in the car, you can do at school. So that's kind of the second part to that answer. The third part is we bring them to church. We've been very intentional about this from day one. We bring them to our church, and we obviously love the Lord and talk about that, but I think it's very important for them to be surrounded by people who feel the same way and who will breathe Christ's love into them each and every day. The fourth part of this is we demonstrate God's love in our family through our actions and through our resources. We think it's very important, and I'm very aware how blessed Sam and I have been with the people that surround us and financially, and I think that's all God's, and we're going to give it back to our community, whether it's time or resources, and we involve our children in this. Salvation Army, Christmas, Angel Tree, it is our children that go pick out those toys every year. When we do the little boxes for around Thanksgiving, we make sure that they are a part of this. When they see me out in the community, giving of my time or helping with something at schools, Jacob will ask, Mama, why are you doing that? Well, I tell him that. I tell him that we are here to help others. And so we try to make that a family effort in everything that we do. We demonstrate God's love, not just talk about it.
Yeah. Someone used to talk about parenting in terms of, more is caught than taught.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Sam and I, we've said this and we play this song, we want our children to be difference makers in this world. So that's something that we try to tell them and demonstrate them to them each and every day.
Yeah.
I can kind of tag on both of them. A couple things just to reiterate what they said. So we make church priority. So if we're in town, if somebody is not sick, we're here. They need to understand the priority of Sunday morning and what it means to be a part of this community, and understanding that there are other people that can teach them about God and their relationship with God. And the other thing is music. Music is a huge part of my life. It's what I'm constantly working on every week. And so we listen to worship music at home, in the car, and my kids kind of get annoyed because if there's a new song, we listen to it kind of like on repeat, so I can figure it out and know what we're doing. Jackson usually gets annoyed with that, and the girls love it because then they get to know it. But stuff like that just becomes something that I don't even realize is making a difference. And so I got home from school with the kids one day. I picked them up and we went home, and I had to continue to work. And I got my computer out and sat at the kitchen table. And Maddie is not a screen kid. She's different from the other two. The other two like to go spend some time in front of the TV watching, kind of unwinding. Maddie's not like that. She'll go outside and run around, play. She'll get a coloring thing. She'll draw, whatever. So she got a piece of paper and sat down next to me, and she was coloring and just kind of at it. And then before I knew it, under her breath, she started singing, "Who the Son sets free is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am." So she was singing that unprompted. That was just on her heart and her mind. And so I love the fact that even though it was not intentional, she's starting to sing truth over her life before she might even be able to completely comprehend what she's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So that song has to do with our identity and who God says that we are. And you know, as people, what we do is we ground our identity, or we find our identity in all kinds of things other than God. And when we do that, it leads us down a path towards destruction. And can you imagine what it'd be like if a 6-year-old kid wraps their mind around their identity, who they are in Christ, and then that fact, that truth guides their life. That's powerful. That's profound. Leah, did you have anything you wanted to add to this one? Because if not, I got a different question I want to start with you on.
Oh, God.
All right, so we'll move on then. I'll take it. Look, another dynamic that you navigate as moms is the romance part of your marriage, right? So how do you, Leah, what do you think would be some things that we could do or comment on keeping the romance alive in your marriage?
Well, for those of y'all who know me, I'm not usually the shy, retiring type. And so various points in our marriage, I'll tell my sweet husband, Dennis, hey, I'm going out on a date Friday night. Do you want to be the one that goes with me? Luckily, he has always said yes. So, 38 years, we're rocking good. But one of the things that after you have the romantic evening, and one of the things that I think parents especially deal with is the physical relationship of a marriage. And over many years, I've kind of noticed that for some people, the physical act of love is a stress reliever. It just, they relax and they feel loved and life is better. But for others, the stress needs to be relieved before they can relax and give and receive love. And I think that as parents, you need to figure that out in your own relationship and how that looks like, and figure out, so there's this difference. How can we work around this difference so that everybody feels loved and relaxed?
Yeah. Did you guys want to add anything? No? Yes, no? Yeah, everybody's like quiet on that one.
Well, I mean, for us, I think one of the things we talked about this the other day is being intentional about vacations, right?
Yeah.
And so we're not able to do this every year, but I think Brandon and I are going to try to do something every other year where we are able to get away for a week or so without the kids and kind of reconnect, because I think a lot of times your kids become your focal point, whether you like them to be or not. They just kind of take over your attention, their schedules, their needs, and everything. And so, actually putting a time away where you can't be interrupted by kids and getting away on a vacation is a really important thing.
I think it's important to have fun in a marriage.
Yeah.
I think that keeps the romance alive. Sam and I are very silly with each other a lot of times. He'll walk through the kitchen and I'll just grab him and we'll dance in the kitchen, just silly stuff. And our kids see us do that, and we even kiss in front of our kids. I think it's very important sometimes for your children to see, you hug each other and kiss each other and dance in the kitchen.
Oh man, the minute I hug Brandon, it's like a group hug all of a sudden. It's like a full family hug.
Carson is very jealous. Like,
Yes,
if I'm
yes.
hugging or kissing Sam, he's going to come in the middle and get right
Yes,
in between.
that's what Maddie does.
So I mean, but it's important for children to see that affection.
See, I'm interested in that moment when you dance. Is there footage of this?
Can you just bring him up on stage right now?
I would love an actual. I'd love an actual recording.
Sometimes it's a foursome dance. It's like Carson in the middle, Jacob on Sam's back. But you just have to be silly with each other. I think, for me, romance is laughing with each other.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right. So as parents, and I'm sure as moms, everybody's had that moment where you're in Walmart or wherever and you're trying to get, the shopping done and the kid just will not comply. they're acting out and and people are staring and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? You can't get your kid, they're not listening and they're not obeying. So talk to us for a few minutes about some things that you've done to navigate those times and what works well for you.
I don't have this one figured out. I don't know if I'll ever have this one figured out. So when somebody figures it out, write a manual. I want to read it. I think when my kids, and I call it act a fool, and they'll hear me say that all the time. When you're acting a fool, I try to take deep breaths. I sometimes can be a screamer and a yeller, and so I try not to scream and yell. And then I realize when I need to tap out and Sam needs to tap in, because there are points where you just get crazy, and it's just best not to handle the situation and rely on someone else to help you. I also think it is very important to take time and just breathe. Like I think I said that just a minute ago. I had a second thought to this and I can't remember it now.
I'll remind you. Earlier you said this thing that I thought was really great about not judging.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So when your children are acting a fool in Walmart, you're both going to be at your absolute worst. I mean, your kids are at their worst, you're at your worst. I have learned not to judge other mothers. I think early in motherhood, I would, see a mom and a kid and the way they're acting, and I would be like, if that was my kid, oh my gosh, they would not do that. The older I have become, I have learned not to judge other mothers, because when you are at your worst, I do not want to be judged. And so every parent's going to react differently to things. There is no good or bad way. I just learned not to judge other mothers, because please don't judge me when you see Jacob or Carson act a fool in Walmart.
Yeah, I mean, mine are perfect. They don't ever act like. No, one of the things that we do a lot of the same things I think that Holly and Sam do. One of the things that we tend to go towards if they're panicking about something or if they're acting crazy or acting a fool. Brandon has this thing where he says, what's the number one family rule? And it gets them to stop. And our number one family rule is to don't freak out. And so that can be around anything, grades, friends, if there is a vegetable on your plate. I mean, it's like everything. Don't freak out, because they'll just start to panic and cry. And so we kind of try to get them to bring it back around and not freak out.
Yeah. So let me move on to the next question.
Oh, wait.
Oh, please. I'm sorry.
Okay. So for mothers in my generation, the idea of your children obeying you is kind of past. That my children are adults. A lot of us have adult children. And I don't want to do everything my parents tell me, so I don't expect my children to do everything I tell them.
Why are you looking at me?
I don't know. It just jumped the track. But so parenting. So it's not about my children obeying me. My role has shifted to more of the cheerleader. Their lives are so exhausting and draining, and it's more my job to fill their love tank, to empower them to go out and lead the adult lives and discipline their children and tackle the tough things of balancing work and family and home. And so for those of us in our generation, it's less about telling our children what to do and expecting them to do what we tell them to do, and more about empowering them to go out and lead fabulous lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys could get in a time machine and go back to your younger mommy self, what piece of advice would you give yourself? And Jessica, as strange as this sounds, let me start with you on this one.
Okay, yeah, if I could go back a few months. I would, I guess I judged other moms. I don't know. I always heard that postpartum was weird and strange, and your body felt weird, and your mind was weird. And I guess to some degree, I felt like that was an excuse. And so I didn't accept it for myself. If I could go back, I would tell my young mommy self that hormones are a real thing. And that if you are not aware, when you have twins or multiple children, it is double or triple, however many kids you have at one time, not like later. But so for me, like I legitimately had double of all of the hormones. So my brain legitimately at times could not focus or be logical. Like I remember it was probably within the first couple of weeks and they had one, my boys are perfect. You joke, but mine really are. But they are awesome sleepers. They're so great. But one time they had a bad night of sleep. And so the next day, it was still during the day, it was almost nighttime. And I just started crying. And Josh was like, well, what on earth? Like, it's almost nighttime, the day is over, we've had dinner, like, why are you crying? And I just told him, like, I am so anxious that the night's gonna be bad. I don't want them to only sleep 2 hours instead of 3 hours this time. You know, like, I was so anxious just about that. And it took me about a month in to realize that it was not an excuse to say that my hormones were crazy. And I had to stop and ask for help and let Josh be my logical brain because I could not do one more thing. Like even deciding dinner stressed me out. Like I could not think about one more thing. It was, my brain and my body were to the max. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would have told myself that it was not an excuse. Your body really is going through a lot of things.
Right, that's good. I got time for one other person to tackle this one.
Oh, my younger self, I would adopt the Lafferty family rule. Yeah. Don't freak out.
Don't freak out.
I was a major freak. I am a major freaker, so don't freak out.
I like it. Leah, answer this question for me. Is there something else in the mommy arena that you would just want people to know?
Yes.
I set you up for that, teed it up.
There is. One thing is that it's never too late to love better, to ask for and give forgiveness. And for all our single moms, our stepmoms, our grandmoms, and future moms, for our moms of loss or infertility, who nurture relatives and friends and coworkers, you are special, you are loved, you are enough, you are needed, and you are necessary.
Yeah. Let me finish out our segment with you guys today by telling you about something that happened to me recently. My wife's grandmother has cancer. She's 80-something, 90-something years old. And she probably, right at this point in time, has less than a month to live. So last weekend, Stacy, her sister, and her parents loaded up to go see her for what will almost certainly be the last time. And when she got back from that trip, I was actually out of town. And so she called me one evening and we were talking about it. And she was telling me about how that last evening that they were there, they sat down with their grandmother and they just interviewed her and they asked her about her life and what was going on and where was she and how did this go. And it was a really neat time. And at the end of the time, they were about to leave. They had said their goodbyes and everybody knew in the room, this is probably gonna be the last time we see each other in this life. And just about the time they got to the door, her grandmother got up and hurried over to where Stacy's mom was. And she grabbed her and she pulled her in until they were standing nose to nose, forehead to forehead, eyeball to eyeball. And her mom, her grandmother, looked at her mom and told her how special and important and meaningful she was to her. And of course, they fall apart and they're crying, and Stacy's and her sister are over crying. And I'm sitting in an Airbnb listening to my wife tell me this story. And in the middle of it, I thought, God, I hope I get that moment. God, I hope I get that opportunity to stare my loved ones in the face before it's all over. My mom, my dad, my wife, my kids. And in that moment, as I'm saying that to God, you know what he told me? TJ, I give you that opportunity every day. And what I want you to know is that today you have an opportunity that you may or may not be aware of. You have an opportunity to look an important woman to you in the face your daughter, your sister, your mother, an aunt, a coworker even, maybe a friend. You have an opportunity to look them in the face and say all the things that you would say, because we may not get that moment. In fact, most of us won't. So find that person and tell them what they mean to you.